What's up, everybody, and welcome to a Thursday edition of Morning Cup of Hockey presented by Bet365. That's Colby Cohen. I'm Johnny Lazarus. A lot to get into on today's show. We got Frank Seravalli joining us here off the hop, and then Mike Grinnell will be joining us at 9:30 to send us home for the week. Going into the weekend, the Detroit Red Wings spanked the Buffalo Sabres last night in a wild fashion. That was a pretty fun game to watch. And then the Utah Hockey Club stays in the mix in the playoff race out west, along with the Vancouver Canucks, who beat the Calgary Flames in a shootout. We're going to get into the Western Conference bubble teams a little bit after Frank joins us. But before we do anything else, Colby, how you feeling this morning?
Good. Let's just get to Frank right away, right? We have limited time with him, so let's get over to him.
All right, I'm just going to read Frank in quick with a word from our friends at Proraso, the most complete choice for shaving and beard care. Made in Italy since 1948, Proraso has been a staple of Italian culture and barbershops globally for 4 generations. So get 15% off at Proraso-USA.com with our promo code Hockey15 in all caps, Hockey15. And Frank, if you're here, if you're listening, which you're not just yet, because apparently he disappeared, according to Vic, and he's back. Good morning, Frank. How are you?
What's going on, boys?
Where are you headed?
This is very Adam Schefter of you right now,
Yeah.
Frank. Just to say the least.
Is it? I'm in the back of a cab and making my way downtown. But yeah, I don't typically do this very often. But look, just happy to be with you guys.
Making your way downtown to Philly, doing what exactly?
I got some business to attend to.
Okay, we'll leave it at that. How you feeling after deadline week? Did you get a lot of rest over the weekend?
Not really. Colby knows what it's like. Just thrown right back into the parent mix after being an absentee dad for a couple weeks during trade deadline season. Minor hockey, cheerleading. There's always something going on.
I was just going to say, Frank spent his weekend at a cheerleading competition down in the southern tip of New Jersey. So
I must say, though, Frank, you are glowing this morning. The lighting is doing you wonders in the car.
It's so good to hear. I mean, I'm sure the nice white hair is
your eyes are popping.
Perfect. Yeah, it's perfect.
Yeah.
Frank, I want to start today and talk to you a little bit about the New Jersey Devils. Dougie Hamilton obviously is now out for the rest of the way. We already know about Hughes. I'm just curious about Tom Fitzgerald's job security. And I would think there is some there because of all the injuries that he's had to deal with. But, the Devils look like a team that could potentially slide out of the playoffs. And, I'm just curious, how impatient do you think that the ownership group there is getting with the fact that they had that little tease a couple of years ago, and since they haven't really been able to steady the ship?
It's a good question, and it's actually one, Colby, that I don't know the answer to because I don't have a real good read on what the Devils ownership situation is or how they feel. I think you're right that this is a team that, we talk a lot about the standings and what they look like, and this Devils team was propped up for so long by playing so many more games than everyone else to start the year. Their trip overseas actually really benefited them. They got off to a hot start, and because they had played so many more games, the standings, the other teams that were in the standings were closer than they appeared. And I think the tough part in watching the Devils, like the 2 injuries that they're dealing with right now are pretty significant. There's no doubt about that, and it significantly hurts their playoff chances in terms of being a team that could be a threat and making an impact in the playoffs. But the way that this team has played really since Christmas has been pretty alarming. So they're a team that I think started off the year defending so much better than they did the year prior. The additions and veteran help that they brought in on their blue line was hugely beneficial. But at the same time, it's like you solve one problem and you end up with another one. You fix your goaltending. Tom Fitzgerald gets the best goaltending that they've had at any point over his tenure. And then all of a sudden, your secondary scoring dries up. And it's like whack-a-mole, it must feel like, for the Devils. And then you pile the injuries on top of it. And you're right. Now they have this playoff spot that seemed to be, pretty clearly defined, which is now suddenly in peril.
Yeah, and I just want to say this because I do see a couple of people in the chat are kind of jumping in here.
They've won their last 2 games, so everyone's
and I watched them play against Columbus. That was a massive win for them. But here's all I'm saying about that is that almost every move that Fitz has made, I've been like, oh, that makes sense. Oh, I like that move. Oh, wow, that makes this team better. I don't know how well the Kovacevic deal is going to age, especially when you have some of those younger guys. But I do like the patient approach with Seamus Casey. Like, I don't think rushing him into the NHL does him good long-term, even though he looks like he probably belongs right now. But look, I'm just, he's been there for a while. We know the lifespan of these jobs aren't that long. You just don't know, like their owner now owns an NFL team and, things get chummy pretty quickly in the NFL. So I they're right up the road from us, Frank. So I just addressing people in the chat that are kind of quickly jumping on this one. I'm just asking the question, right? And Frank didn't say, I think he's getting fired tomorrow by any means, but I think it's a fair question to ask. Johnny, go ahead.
Well, no, I actually like that Fitz didn't really go out and do a lot at the deadline because I think, Frank was telling us after Jack got hurt that the reports, right, were that the Devils were going to go about the deadline as planned, as if Jack, were in the lineup. And obviously the Devils didn't go out and make any crazy moves to go on a run in the playoffs. So I think it was smart of them to kind of stay put.
Yeah, but Johnny, so just FYI, I had been saying from the beginning, once the Hughes injury happened, and frankly, actually, from 4 Nations on, I was like, wow, Jack Hughes and the level of play, how lost he appeared to be at times during that tournament. I was like, I'm not certain that this team is capable right now as constituted of making a run. But beyond that, there was reporting all deadline week, hey, the Devils are going to continue to be aggressive. They're going to continue to try and chase a big name or two. And I was the one saying, I'm not sure this is the year. To me, I think the Devils are in the same spot that the Minnesota Wild are in. They've got Kaprizov hurt, Joel Eriksson Ek is hurt, and they need to take a step back and think, and you heard Bill Guerin say it right after their deadline, this is not our year. And for New Jersey, I like what they've put together, the pieces that are in place. I think that they can continue to add to it in smart ways. But this isn't a team right now that is on the same level as Florida, Toronto, the rest of the teams in the East, that even Washington, that's in their own bracket, they're not at that level yet.
Were they in the mix at all for like a big name on deadline day or not even a little bit?
So when you heard Tom Fitzgerald say that they were a runner-up, my guess, and I don't know this for certain, would be that they felt like they were in the mix to get Brock Nelson. So they, I don't think any team was going to be able to match the deal that was on the table, getting Cal Ritchie from Colorado. And beyond that, I think Colorado was Brock Nelson's preferred destination. So everything worked out perfectly and lined up. But if you're thinking about what New Jersey needs, it's, more help down the middle and secondary scoring punch. And Brock Nelson provided both those things. So that would be my sort of educated guess.
Yeah. No, that's good to know. Cause obviously, listen, I think Devils fans were feeling very hopeful, but I'm sure most of them are happy that they kind of stayed put, around deadline day. Cause Frank, like you said, the hardest thing to do for a GM probably is to admit to yourself that it's not your year, right? Cause it's their job to make it their year. And I think in this case,
we were just talking about job security though. That's the best way to get yourself into trouble, is to go out and spend assets and then have your team have a short playoff run. And then everyone turns around and says, all that for what? And that's how you end up getting into bigger trouble, not only for yourself, but for the longer term view of the organization and what you've been building toward.
So that kind of brings us into the next team, Colby, unless you had a final thought on that.
No, go ahead. I think I know where you're going.
I was going to lead that into Detroit.
Yep, that's exactly where I wanted to go to.
Yeah, so Colby, you can take it from here if you want, but that's
kind of what I was thinking about
the Red Wings. Well, I was thinking with the Red Wings, a team that's desperate right now to get into the playoffs, but maybe recognizes even if they get there, they're probably not good enough to go far. Is that why they didn't make a big splash either? Because I think if you were asking us a week ago if there was one team that would, the Red Wings had to be up there.
Yeah, and I would say a different scenario. I'd say they're one team that should, because this has been year 6 and of the plan, and this is a year that they were supposed to take a step forward. And you understand how, as they've stacked these, prospects one on top of each other, and you see the pieces that they've, started to assemble on their back end, for instance, they just need more. And I think Detroit, obviously in no different situation than Ottawa, in that they could desperately use the taste of getting to the playoffs and that experience. Like, the fact that we have not played a single playoff game in Little Caesars Arena to this point since it opened, like, the playoffs were just a rite of spring in Detroit for the longest time. That's how you knew spring had arrived. First round hockey in Detroit. Yeah. And that we haven't gotten to that point, I think is really disappointing. And I know you mentioned a big win. Like, to me, I'm out on the Red Wings, not the Devils. I'm out on the Red Wings losing 6 straight. They came back to earth after Todd McClellan and that hot streak that they had after the coaching change. And the fact that they didn't improve their team on the back end during that entire deadline period, to me, is unforgivable.
Well, and Frank, this is a team that spends to the cap. They have $500,000 in cap space. It's not like they're like, okay, it's not our year, we're not going to spend money, we're going to do it next year. Like, I mean, that to me seems like, like Steve Yzerman has some sort of lifetime contract to be the general manager, because the results they're just not there. And I'm sure if Detroit Red Wings fans, you can love Steve Yzerman, the player, but the reality is, and I loved him as a player growing up. The reality is he's just not doing a good enough job. And how long can they continue to allow this to go on for such a storied franchise? I mean, you look at their roster, like, yeah, they've got some free agents. Kane's money comes off the books, but that's really the only significant chunk of money that comes off their books. So he's going to have to get creative and sort of, retool this roster and admit that it's just not good enough.
So let's chip away at a few of those things that you mentioned. Okay. So does Steve Yzerman have a lifetime contract? I mean, I think he's got a longer rope, if we're being honest,
well, that's obvious, right?
Than many other managers would be afforded in that market with that team and that franchise. 2, there's only so much patience to go around. So that said, the seat, I'm sure, is getting warmer. And beyond that, just to correct one thing, they had tons of cap space. They had $14 million plus of cap space on deadline day, with their ability to move players around and go to LTIR. And that's one reason why they were actually being criticized. Why did you retain to help the Tampa Bay Lightning with the Yanni Gourde deal, a division rival that, you could be competing against in the playoffs? Why did you help them get that deal done? They essentially just purchased a draft pick with the cash that they have on hand that they could have never spent to begin with. So they had plenty of room to make things happen. And for me, I don't know that the forward group needs a vast overhaul. I think they did things a little bit out of order, to be honest, and maybe backwards. Like you just mentioned, Kane, and another guy that's been talked about a lot as perhaps not really a great fit this year has been Vladimir Tarasenko. So if you take those two guys, like, to me, when you bring in Kane and Tarasenko, 2 guys in their mid to late 30s, what you're talking about is a team that's like looking for the missing pieces, right? Like, hey, we're one piece away from winning a Stanley Cup. Those are the guys. We
did 2 years ago.
Yeah, those are the guys.
2 exact guys.
But not for a team that hasn't made the playoffs.
Yeah,
and not for a team that in the summer had cap issues, that is trotting out a third pair that includes Gustafsson and Hall. And they've gone through Jeff Petrie, and obviously they poorly evaluated the talent with Jake Walman and the assets involved. Like, it's been one mistake after the other. Their pro scouting department has done a poor job in talent evaluation on their back end, and it starts and ends there. Amateur, they've done great. Edvinsson, their draft picks, Sandin Pellikka, all these guys that are on the way, they've actually done a really good job drafting. But in the moment, adding pieces to your roster to help you get into the playoffs here and now, it just hasn't been good enough, and that's where the overhaul is needed.
You foresee them re-signing Kane in the offseason?
I was shocked he re-signed this time around.
Right.
I mean, by all accounts, obviously last year they got lost the tiebreaker. They were close. I think he had an okay run after getting back in the lineup and played at an 80-point pace, but I didn't envision him staying, and then it came down to the wire and he ended up re-upping. I don't know, after missing again for the second time, most likely, does it make sense for him to go back again?
Yeah.
I saw that Jonathan Taves is back on the ice. He's training. I actually skated with one of my good friends, Justin Kappelmaster, down in Florida also, who runs like a goaltending clinic or goaltending camp or something. Would there be any chance that those two like go back to Chicago, you think?
No, neither one of them, I don't think,
Don't think so?
will be going back to Chicago, no.
Yeah,
That'd be a cool story, though.
I certainly didn't foresee that happening either.
I think the ship has sailed on that, I think is the best way to say it. I know Hawks fans see the 5-point game from Patrick Kane, and I've seen the tweets. It fills my social media feed, but I think those days are over.
It was against the Sabres. I could have put up 5 points. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I don't want any disrespect.
All right, Johnny, I'm going to give you the last question because I know you always like to have it. And I know that Frank's got to get moving here in the next couple of minutes. So go ahead.
Yeah, I think my initial reaction, we talked about it a little bit on the show. I don't even remember what day it was when the Ekblad news dropped. It might have been Monday afternoon, so maybe we talked about it Tuesday. Does that affect what's going to happen with him this summer as a UFA? Just getting a 20-game suspension? Because my first thought was, oh no, like, this guy gets in trouble in a contract year. Obviously, Florida brings in Seth Jones to be his replacement. What's going to happen to Aaron Ekblad after this is all settled?
It's a good question, a fair question. I don't know that it will end up having a material impact unless teams would look back and say, hey, these PEDs or whatever was going on, positively impacted his game in a way that he won't be able to sustain moving forward, which I don't even know how you'd be able to calculate that. So I'd say probably not. But the truth is, on the whole, for Aaron Ekblad, even with the cap increasing, I think he was going to be in a tough spot to try and maintain the level of pay that he's at right now. And before the Jones trade, I had felt like the writing was on the wall for him, unless he was taking a significant hometown discount, that the Panthers would be moving on, not just due to a sort of drop off in his play. Like, think about how we had looked at Ekblad before as like this bona fide number one defenseman. He hasn't been at that level for a while. And beyond that, there's been injuries that have piled up and some inconsistencies that I think have made it tougher. So I think he's one of those guys that they were probably moving on either way. And unless the PED suspension changes that in a way that he says, hey, look, my marketability has been damaged and I'll sign for $5 million a year, then that might change the equation and he could stay. But I'd say the Seth Jones deal really probably helped seal that.
Do you have any idea of what exactly the test, like what he failed? I just heard you say PED. Like, there's no. I haven't heard it either. I didn't know if maybe you had heard about that.
No, so he admitted in a statement through the NHLPA that he had taken something that he should have been more careful to help him with recovery, and basically just admitted to making a mistake. So. Don't know any details beyond that as to what the substance was, the severity, anything like that. And Colby, you played, you've been around a lot of people in locker rooms. Like, it's not as if NHL testing is super stringent. So
I said that on the show. I kind of was like almost like making fun of it the other day on our show about how laid back it is. Like they're looking for a few specific things, and then you basically can get away with get away. Like they're just not looking for other things.
There's a reason why it's been 7 years since our last PED suspension.
Yeah. Well, Johnny gave us a story about, something he bought at the GNC at the mall that, had some questionable results. And just before you finish your last thought,
put the extends down, Johnny. Stop it with the 7-Eleven pills.
I needed to get abs for Lucy the elephant down in Margate.
he that edible kicks in at night and those infomercials start coming on the TV and he's like, oh, I'll order this. This says there's only 17 side effects for this. Look, Aaron Ekblad, Frank, at $5 million with the cap direction. I like you change the way you look at him for $5 million. That I think that would be a solid deal.
But here's the thing: in order to have that happen, he needs to change the way that he looks at himself
for sure
in the market in order for that to work.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen. Again, we appreciate the Schefter style appearance on the show today. We missed you Tuesday. We figured we'd give you a little bit of rest this week, but we're thankful that we got you back on end of the week. So safe travels, Frank, and I will talk to you this weekend. All right.
Sounds good. See you guys.
Thanks, Frank. That was great. I kind of like the thing in the car. It's very Pat McAfee-esque, right? I feel like we're doing
guys do that. Yeah. All right. So our next guest, I believe, is already here. And it's actually perfect timing because, you know, I'd like to bring Mike Grinnell into the show, Vic, please. Good to see you, pal. And I hope you're having a great morning. And normally I get all over Johnny for him not asking people how their mornings are going. But there was a controversy yesterday. I have not publicly commented on this controversy, and I figured you were the perfect guy to sort through this with me, G. I don't know if you saw this on social media yesterday or not, but okay, I people were tagging me left and right on these tweets. People wanted my comment. They wanted to hear what I had to say, but I will cede the floor to you and just ask you what goes through your mind when you see something like this.
I think it's time for an intervention. I think just seeing this, and I mean, what made you want to go live in Gainesville too during the pandemic? Like, so what are you thinking? You kind of look fat too here, John.
I know. I put on like 20 pounds. This is like 2 months into COVID. I was just smoking weed and ordering Jimmy John's every night. But so my season ended in college. I was a senior in college when COVID hit. I was going to actually play in Pensacola in the SPHL. And my girlfriend at the time was a senior at the University of Florida, and I'd never been able to visit her because of hockey. So COVID happened. We had the 2-week break. Everyone's like, oh, it's a 2-week vacation. We'll come right back to school after. So I went to go visit her for 2 weeks. Obviously, COVID escalated. I ended up staying there for 50 days. I lived with 8 girls for 50 days. Actually, it was the first thing I ever posted, like, on social media, was an article that I wrote about living with 8 girls for 50 days. It was actually like, I got interviewed by like TSN because there was nothing else happening in the world at the time. Yeah, it was nuts. That's ridiculous. So like the eight girls, they were graduating that year. So they did all their graduation photos. And I was obviously a senior as well. And I was like, well, I'm not going to have a graduation. Should I just like take my own photos and just copy what you guys do? So that's what I did. And I thought it was hilarious because I was missing my front teeth. And
it was funny. It was funny, but it little weird.
Little concerning.
What made you post that yesterday on social media?
It was like, what'd you look like in 2020? It was like a caption I saw, what'd you look like in 2020? And I remember those pictures and I thought they were hilarious. So I was like, you know what? I think people will find this funny.
I think it's safe to say you had a glow up is what the kids say. But you've definitely had a glow up.
Yeah, that's fair.
All right,
that's fair.
All right. So we've worked our way through that controversy. You know, there's many others we could get into, but we'll try to stay off of Johnny's personal life. And gee, look, I think everybody was expecting you to come on our show today and just absolutely bash and absolutely bash the Boston Bruins. But I will get there. But you watch a lot of hockey, and I'm just curious, like, you know, which team do you think made the best and smartest moves at the trade deadline? Because the biggest moves don't always work out.
I love what Colorado did. I mean, they coming into this, I actually didn't have Colorado as like a cup contender.
Really?
I just thought they were too top heavy. I just thought they had one great line. They have, you know, obviously great defense on the back end, but 2 through 4 didn't look that great. And now they're just, I mean, Brock Nelson, Charlie Coyle, Jack Jury's their 4th line center. He'd be the 1st line center in Boston right now. Like I mean, Johnny would probably be the 1st line center in Boston as well, but I love what Colorado did. They're actually my cup pick right now. And I think they're loaded.
Wow, you hear that, Colby? That's jumping on my bandwagon.
Listen, pretty difficult to reinvent your entire center ice in the middle of a season and your entire net.
Yeah.
Like, I think Chris McFarland has probably under the radar had the best season of any general manager.
I know. Think about it too. It's just like there are times where people are like, this guy's the worst GM in the league this season. And then there's times where people are like, he's the best GM in the league. He's just had a roller coaster year.
And I want to say this. I want to hit this from the chat because, Miller time, 1980s, got some fair points. And, I don't believe bringing in Jack Drury and bringing in Charlie Coyle and bringing in Brock Nelson, like, those aren't guys who like the world revolves around. Those are guys that sort of can fit in. When I think of like trade deadline moves that generally don't work out, it's usually when you bring in a guy like the Rangers did with Patrick Kane, right? And I'm not doing this to shit on you, Johnny, at all, but you bring in a guy that the whole world revolves around. That's where I think it can be different than when you bring in guys who can sort of just fit in, even if they're in big roles. So I hear what you're saying, Miller time, but I also don't look at any of those players as ultimate alpha dogs.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. I just think like with Colorado too, like they acquired guys with term. Like Coyle has term.
Yeah. Well, it's just 1 year, right? It's just 1 year.
Yeah, but still.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just I just love what McFarland did. I think they look like geniuses right now in Colorado.
Okay, I want to obviously ask you about the Bruins. And, I know how you feel about the deadline, but when they go out and beat Florida and Tampa after doing that, are you just like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Oh my God. That was such a tough game for me to watch too. Yeah. Bruins fans are not happy with me at all right now. I was on top of the world with Bruins fans. Now I'm just bottom of the barrel because right after they won that game, I tweeted, God damn it, we're going to piss away the lottery pick, aren't we? And that's not like management made that decision. Management made that decision when they trade Brad Marchand. And then you go, oh, I'm going to fucking lose my mind right now, guys. I'm going to have another crash out. Then you go on on Twitter this morning and I see Boston Sports Radio, fucking the Greg Hill show saying, Brad Marchand, this team is better without Brad Marchand. How dumb can you be? Like, how honest? For them to get 100 points, they'd have to go 16-0 for the rest of the season. 16-0. That is not happening. Like, management made the decision to throw in the towel on the season. It took me a while to come to grips on that. I come to grips on it. And then I say, God damn it, they're going to piss away the lottery pick, and all the Bruins fans are jumping down my throat. What I want,
question, G, but if they get in the playoffs, will you be mad? Like, are you? You not give shit anymore about the season like that? I know.
No, I mean, like if the Bruins got in the playoffs at the end of the day, like I love playoff hockey. My family owns a restaurant right next to the Garden. Like it's
unbelievable
gonna,
spot.
Yeah,
the greatest bar. It's a legendary place that has just touched so many lives over the course of a very long time. Just to add a little color to that statement.
We were there before the championship for Four Nations. It was buzzing.
Yeah, it's incredible. So like obviously at the end of the day, and that's not the only reason why. I mean, I'm a diehard Bruins fan, and that's been the whole thing with this whole situation is like I want people to understand when I talk about the Bruins, I'm not the executive producer of Spittin Chiclets. I'm Mike Grinnell, grew up with season tickets to the Bruins, family owns a restaurant right next door to the barn. I might not be rational. I'm probably pretty delusional, but I'm a diehard Bruins fan. And at the end of the day, that's what I am. So I can't, if the Bruins get into the playoffs, obviously I'm going to be super excited.
Yeah.
I will be excited, but at the same time, I won't be though, because they're going to get swept. Like I don't want to be the Philadelphia Flyers. I don't want that. I don't want to be in purgatory for the next 10 years. I don't want to sit in that ninth.
He said restaurant is a loose term.
Yeah, it is a loose term. The chef is incredible, though. Best chicken fingers.
Unreal chicken fingers. I was just
they're incredible.
Chicken fingers are so good.
The mozzarella sticks too. They're incredible. But but then they get into the playoffs, and it's like this team can't win a Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
What are we talking about? This team can't win. They'll get swept if they get into the playoffs. So at the end of the day, like, no, I do not want the Bruins to get into the playoffs. I would hope that they, I mean, to be honest, it sucks to say, but I want a lottery pick. Like the 15th pick versus like 7 or 8. Like that's such a big difference. You could get someone who can change your franchise in the top 10. You're not getting that at 15, 16 if they squeeze in 16, 17. That's not happening. So at the end of the day, like I don't want to, I'm never rooting for the Bruins to lose. But right now, the franchise made the decision to throw in the towel, so I'm following their lead.
Yeah, that's actually a good way to put it, right? Like if they're not going to go for it, like why should you?
Right? Yeah, and you know what? If the Bruins at the deadline signed Brad Marchand and they went and traded for Brock Nelson and made additions, then foot on the gas pedal. Let's go win this thing. I didn't make this decision. Don Sweeney made the decision to throw in the towel, and any moron out there that says the Bruins are better without Brad Marchand, go fuck yourself.
I will say, though, I wouldn't hate seeing the Bruins like possibly sneak in and like playing Florida in the first round. So you could see Brad Marchand play against Boston. I think that'd be pretty cool.
I think for the NHL, that would be great. I think for the NHL, like it would be awesome. But as a Bruins fan, like you're going to get swept or you're going to lose, in 5. So I just, if we're going for the future, like Don Sweeney said, like Cam Neely's saying, then you should want the team to essentially lose right now.
Yeah, but when you talk about future with Boston, I mean, you get Fraser Minton in there now, but it's not like it's a deep prospect pool. There's a lot of just like okay prospects. BC has a couple of them with Gasso and Yelovic, like good, nice players, might find their way into the NHL at some point.
There's
a couple at UMass, but that's the thing here. Like, you still have McAvoy. You still have a couple of these big contracts, these guys that are superstars. Like, you still have a core. I can't imagine you're thrilled that Don Sweeney's the one who's going to lead them through this retool.
No. And I think I want to like choose my words like wisely here, but like this team's been very close. Like this team was a very close-knit team. Don Sweeney has pissed off a lot of those guys. Like, it's one thing to be a tough negotiator on one contract. Every single contract, he is now pissed off a lot of the players, former players, the fan base. So, yeah, I mean, the decisions he's made, yes, I think that he's made a lot of bad decisions. But I think the trickle-down effect is like he's pissed off a lot of players in that locker room. And what's stopping David Pastrnak from walking into his office in his exit meeting saying, I want to trade out of here. I'm 28 years old. I'm playing the best hockey of my life right now. I'm getting 100 points a year, and this team is going nowhere anytime soon. Why wouldn't he do that? And that's not saying I know anything or I have
it's a Biz and Darlene situation.
No. No, I said this on Chiclets. I'm like, why wouldn't he? I have no idea. And I also, David Pastrnak is the type of guy who loves Boston through and through, but it's like at the same time, you got to think like this guy's never won a cup. He probably wants to go win one. Yeah. So it's like I almost wouldn't blame him if he did that. But at the same time, like Colby said, like the Bruins have the pieces in place. They have Charlie McAvoy. They have Jeremy Swayman. They have David Pastrnak. They got guys like Pavel Zacha on great contracts.
Lohrei is going to be a good player.
Mason Lohrei, he looks awesome. Yeah, so like the pieces are there, but again, like kind of like Colby alluded to, like I don't trust Don Sweeney to make the proper moves here to get this team back on track. So we'll see.
Yeah, well, I was going to throw out something dumb, but just kind of curious. Yeah, Colby, shocker. Right?
Let's hear it.
Well, obviously, this is like the most hypothetical thing ever, but Ranger fans right now are frustrated with this guy, and Boston fans, I think, just with where they're at. What if you swapped $9.5 million defenseman, Long Island boys, Foxy for McAvoy?
I would never. I would if I was Boston. I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that in a heartbeat. Charlie McAvoy. Like you're not comparing apples to apples. I said it on the show.
After Cale Makar, I'm taking Charlie McAvoy next in a 7-game playoff series for a defenseman.
Yeah, after seeing what he did in the Four Nations, right?
Gee,
I don't know. Like the way Pasternak was talking after his interview yesterday or the day before, he sounded like he would be a great captain as well. So yeah, him, McAvoy or Pasternak.
Pasta can't be the captain. Like I like too many of my friends have been through that locker room and they all love Pasta. Like nobody does anything but love Pasta, but he can't be the captain. I'm gonna push back on you.
But have you heard him lately? I would have agreed to that like 2-3 months ago. But lately he seems just, I don't want to say more mature because he's been a mature guy, but yeah, I would say McAvoy is the captain, though.
Yeah.
I think that's fair to say.
So let me ask you this.
First American captain I believe they've ever had.
Oh wow, yeah.
Fun fact for you.
I'm just gonna say this as someone who did not like Don Sweeney and worked for him for a number of years. Never felt like he was super honest. Always felt like he just kind of bullshitted and it was unnecessary. So I don't have a personal liking of this guy from when I worked for him. And played for him, but G, I don't to me, Don Sweeney will, when he gets let go from the Boston Bruins, he will be the first hire like an hour later, like Monty was, like Butchie was, or Bruce Cassidy was, because I do think the hockey world really, really respects what he's done. There's a reason he was the GM at Team Canada, right? I mean, that is a big role to have. So I think it's a situation I always equate it to.
I mean, that's the easiest job in the world, to be the GM of Team Canada. Like,
yes and no, because you still got. Here's where I'm going to equate it to, right? Like Bill Belichick is the greatest coach of all time in the NFL, but eventually he had to move on from the Patriots. It was the same thing in Philly for me with Andy Reid. He didn't get fired from the Eagles because he's a bad coach. Please tell me
you're not about to compare Don Sweeney and Bill Belichick right now.
Listen, I'm just saying.
I'm going to crash out.
No, my point is that I do think it's time for Sweeney to go. I do, right? I think it's time. He has his scouting department has done a terrible job.
Where are you going with this? Because Don Sweeney, Bill Belichick and Andy Reid won, and they did good things. And he inherited David Krejci, Pasternak, Bergeron.
Yeah, but he
Chara.
was the assistant general manager with Peter Chiarelli, and he was doing a lot of the scouting at that point. He was doing a lot of the development work at that point. Again, I don't like this guy personally, but I want to be fair. Like, I do want to be fair. I'm just saying it's time for him to go, but I do think he'll go somewhere else and do a good job. Like, I do. I think he'll still go elsewhere and do a good job, but I'm with you. He's not the guy I want to see rebuilding the Boston Bruins right now whatsoever.
No, and I think at the trade deadlines, he's been great. Like, he's a good trader. At the end of the day, I think drafting and developing is such a big. It's so crucial in the NHL with the hard salary cap that you need guys to perform on entry-level contracts, which the Bruins over the past few years they haven't got that. So
these need Kevin Adams.
but we say this all the time. Like, teams are like, there aren't a lot of teams that are good at drafting. There's maybe a handful, maybe. Like, I feel like everyone feels the way you do, G, about how they draft and develop their young players. Like,
I mean,
the Bruins, we should have a 20-year-old draft. We need to stop with the 18-year-old draft. Like, you're just throwing shit against a wall with these.
COVID would have been the perfect time to switch it when they basically like missed that. Like, COVID would have been the perfect time for that. Because now if you do that, like, one draft class is going to kind of get fucked.
Yeah. But you know, I want to go. Like, I feel like everyone has that opinion about their own organization, like, or the team they root for.
I do want to say one thing before we move on from the Bruins.
Yeah.
Rick Tocchet, contract is up at the end of the season in Vancouver. You know, a lot of drama there. Canadian dollars tanking. You know, Quinn Hughes could be leaving in a year or two. If he comes in and is the next Bruins coach, this whole thing gets going a lot quicker. Because one, people want to play for Rick Tocchet. Two, Boston is a desirable city to play in. There aren't many free agents to sign right now, but people are saying it's going to be an RFA summer. So you go get Rick Tocchet, sign a couple, you do a couple offer sheets. The Bees can be back in no time.
Well, Merle seems to think it'll be Jay Leach behind the bench next year. I think that he's probably more right than he is wrong, like more than 50% right, in my opinion. Because I do think they brought Leachy there with their eye on the future. And I will say that the Flyers are going to have something to say about Rick Tocchet coming to Boston, because I've heard that swirling around Philadelphia that, that is their
my
lead
God.
target.
He would be great
to bring him back to Philly and let
he was there before.
Torts move into a different role in that regard. So, all right, I'm going to bring you to another team that's going to fire you up. And they're north of the border, and they are, one of the rivals of the Boston Bruins, and that's Toronto. And what they did at the deadline, bringing in Lawton, bringing in Brandon Carlo, a guy that I feel like I've sort of been alone defending for years because I've just always thought he's a good player and underappreciated, not having the best year of his career. But again, players do fall into that. What do you think of Toronto this year? Do you think they can finally win a cup? Like, do you think they finally built that decor up enough to win?
Well, this is, I'm going to say something like Lazarus level of stupid right now, but there's this Twitter account. It's like NHL bots that just like for years has been like years ahead of like predicting things. And apparently like 3 years ago, they predicted 2025 Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup. So, man, I don't know. I follow the Twitter bots, and maybe they're right. But no, the Leafs, I said it before the year, like something did feel a little different about this Leafs team this year heading into the season. I'm kind of worried about Austin Matthews right now. He just doesn't look like himself. So I don't know if it's that, like when he went over to Germany, if it's like a wrist injury, a back injury, whatever it is, that should be a big worry right now. Because if Austin Matthews isn't going, this team's probably not going to make that deep of a run. Yeah, I think it starts and ends with 34. If 34 is healthy and can put it together on the second half of the season and for a playoff run, yeah, I think they could absolutely do some damage in the playoffs. But again, it's going to be really, I mean, getting that top seed in the Atlantic is so crucial because that 2-3 battle is, I mean, that's like the Eastern Conference final, essentially.
I do think Leafs fans would argue, though, like Matthews has always been like fine, like in the playoffs, not maybe exceptional, but he's always been like good. Nylander's been the guy to carry them, I feel like, come playoff time in recent history. And then, I think everyone's looking at 16. That has to be the guy to step up, right? Like, I think I wouldn't argue that it's Matthews. I'd say it's Mitch Marner. And then the goaltending's been much better this year. Stolarz has been great. Wall's been great. Wall gets hurt last year, obviously, prior to Game 7. Like it's
Wall
maybe
he hasn't been great. I wouldn't say Wall's been great. I think Stolarz has played really, really well. But again,
good, not great.
Stolarz has never played every night. If you get into the playoffs, are you rotating? Maybe. I don't know.
How awesome would it be to see Toronto, Ottawa first round?
That'd be sick.
That would be incredible.
I'm trying to get to Ottawa for a playoff game, honestly. If they're in, I'm going to try to go there.
Ottawa fans want me dead right now, too.
Really? Because Brady Tkachuk stuff?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'm just like, in
like
my DMs, I'm battling with them. I'm just going at it with Senators fans.
They're a fun fan base, man. I really love the Ottawa
passionate. Very passionate.
Yeah. But, yeah, I guess, sticking north of the border with Ottawa, I think they play the Bruins tonight, right? Like that's a big game. Obviously, it's in Ottawa as well.
Just a lose-lose situation for me, because after last game, I'm tweeting that I want the Bruins to lose. So it's like, do I want the Bruins to lose? Or every time Ottawa wins, I get hundreds of tweets, all the DMs, like, go fuck yourself. Brady ain't going anywhere. So it's like, whoever wins tonight, I'm kind of screwed.
Well, Ullmark better than Colby and I probably do from watching him over the past couple of years. And the narrative around Ullmark, at least this is what Vic is saying. I'm quoting Vic on this, because this was going to be our bet of the night, but it's not, is that Ullmark can't win the big one. So tonight's game, you can call it what you want, but Ottawa now heading toward the playoffs. Do you think they can win a round in front of Linus Ullmark?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I definitely think they could win a round. No question.
So you are kiboshing the Ullmark can't win the big one?
Yeah. Definitely.
What did you think of the trade with Ottawa? Like,
I hated it.
Shipping those two guys out, bringing Cousins in.
I thought you were talking about the Bruins trade with them this summer.
No. I'm talking what they just did at the deadline. And if you want to hit it from Buffalo's side too, I was listening to to the sheet yesterday, and
Yeah.
he had Lance. I don't want to butcher his
Lisowski?
last name.
Lisowski?
Lisowski on, and he kind of said, like, what was the point of this trade? Like, this could have waited. It just didn't seem, like you just kind of moved pieces around almost to say you did it. Do you feel like Ottawa got better with that trade, G?
Yeah, I actually do feel like Ottawa did get a little better because the best ability is availability. And as we know, like Josh Norris hasn't been available. Yeah. And I think Ottawa, it's the new owners, like they want playoff hockey more than anything. I think the fans want it more than anything. So I think they're at some point, like the losing culture has to end. And even if it's not the home run move, I do think at one point you have to be like, all right, you know what? Even if we're 1% better, 2% better,
right,
we have to do this. We owe this to our fan base to do this and make a run at this. And overall in the trade, like I think it's a little concerning to see Brady Tkachuk so upset. Obviously, I mean, that happens. That's the worst part of hockey, as you know, Colby, is just the trades, the friendships and all that. But you never want to see a guy's best friend like that traded. I mean, I think Brady Tkachuk wants to win more than anything. And if Dylan Cousins can help them do that, I think that's really what matters first. But
and Zetterlund too. We shouldn't forget him. He's a piece. Like, he can play. This isn't just a throw-in type of guy.
I agree. And I don't know what's happened to Cousins the past year or two. Like, I feel like ever since he got his ass kicked that time and his face was all fucked up, he's never really been the same player.
Who pumped him?
I forget.
I'm blanking.
Well, the other thing that I remember, I looked up, G, because when we were talking about him on the show a little bit earlier, we had Pinto on the show yesterday, so it was like doing a little extra homework on Ottawa. Like, I just don't like. I always say this, like, you play like 300 games in the NHL and you're like a 35 to 45 point scorer. Like, that's just like probably what you are. Like, you might have an outlier up or down, right? You might have a year where you have 60. You might have a year where you have 15 or 20, but you just kind of like, that's what you are. And with Cousins, he had 68 points one year, but then it's been 38, 47, 31, or he's up to, I guess this year he's up to about 34. He's probably a 40 to 50 point scorer. And I know people are giving me shit about that. I don't remember if it was social media or already in the chat. Somebody's hitting me about that, being like, what are you talking about? That's kind of what it looks like he's going to be. The 68 number looks like it was the outlier.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think he can be a 50-point guy.
Hathaway pumped him, by the way.
Yeah, Hathaway is who
Vic just gave us the apple on that. Good job, Vic.
But I mean, but like looking at Ottawa down the middle, Stützle, Cousins, Pinto, Gaudette, I like that. Like,
Tim Stützle's so good. He's
still so young. He's like 23 years old. It's insane.
I think Vic actually has the video of Dylan Cousins getting pumped here. Vic, you want to plug it?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like
Hathaway's mean. He's like he throws, man. That I would
does.
Not. He's a guy I'd be like, nope, not doing it. Sorry.
I'll pass.
Really nice guy.
I will pass on that.
Really nice guy. Gee, I got to ask you a question because I know we're probably gonna wrap it up here.
Yeah, make this the last one, and then let's let him go here, John.
I got two more. The second thing isn't a question though; it's a tire pump. Last question. So I know you just said Colorado is your pick to win the cup, but let's say the Bruins don't make it, which they probably won't. Who are you rooting for? You're obviously going to be on one person's bandwagon. Spittin Chiclets, you guys always hop on one.
Yeah, I'm debating this because it was going to be Winnipeg, but then now it's just like, geez, like coming out of the West is going to be so tough. I'm leaning towards Carolina, because they've just been dealt kind of their fans have been been dealt a shit sandwich. We got the Gargoyles coming next season, North Carolina, Greensboro. So I kind of want to jump on their train. But yeah, I don't know. I need a little bit more time, I think, to pick. Maybe Ottawa. Maybe I just do the biggest heel turn of the century. I get myself a Brady Tkachuk captain jersey, and I'm just the biggest Senators fan.
There's some good ones in the chat too, like like Ovi would be an unreal story if he goes on some long run.
That's a good one too, because I love Ryan Leonard, and Ryan Leonard's gonna come in there, and I hope he just sets the fucking hockey world on fire.
Yeah.
Can you not root for Marchand? Like, you just don't have.
Well, that was what I was going to say. I
I
want to
will.
see
No.
Marshy win a cup in Florida. Like, if you
Yeah.
said to me, pick one team right now, like, I probably am rooting to see Marshy go win another one. Like, when in 2011, like, Marshy was important, but he was a third liner on that team and a penalty killer. Like, he wasn't even really a power play guy yet. I'd love to see him go be like a huge part of it and a leader on a team and help them win a cup. Like, I'd go Florida.
100%. It's almost like it's kind of like it's not the same rivalry, but like when Tom Brady went to Tampa, it was like, oh, I'm rooting for Tampa, no question about it. Like I want them to go win, and it's kind of the same thing. It's obviously a little bit tough to root for the Panthers. Thank God it's not like Toronto or Montreal or someone like that who it's like in your Boston blood to hate. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't hate being down at the Elbow Room in June again, watching the Panthers win another cup. I wouldn't hate that one bit.
Okay, so I lied. Two more things, because one's from the chat. I forgot who said it. I can scroll a bit to give credit. Someone in the chat asked if there's a Chiclets U coming out soon. And
yes, Ski U Ma, baby. Ski U Ma. I got the Minnesota Gophers coming out next Thursday, a week from today.
Well,
Nice.
Normally it's a Chiclets bump, but maybe this was a Chiclets. What would the opposite of a
Chiclets
bump be?
dump?
Yeah, because man, who would have saw them losing to Notre Dame in
Michigan
the first
State
round?
too? Michigan State lost. Michigan lost. Like,
and here's the thing now. Here's the thing I want to throw at you, and we see this every year. That means Minnesota is not playing a game for almost 3 weeks. The NCAA tournament is the last weekend of March. Okay, so now you've got 3 weeks without a game if you're any of those teams that lost early. And that's not a good thing to not play for 3 weeks before a one and done. It's not a series that you can work your way into, right? So
what do you do, Colby, if you're the coach? If you're Motzko, are you doing just inter squad scrimmages every day? Like,
you're probably bringing in refs, and you need to do something like that. I don't know if there's a Canadian U team you can play. Like,
that's kind of crazy. That's risking injury, though. No,
I agree. Yeah.
But
I'm just saying, maybe you put the game jerseys on the players and you split them up. Like, I don't honestly, there's no way to replicate it. There's no way. Big Ten needs to get their head out of their asses and fix their playoff situation.
I couldn't agree more. But speaking of Big Ten, well, first off, let me finish off by saying the Chiclets U, we got Jimmy Snuggerud's the guest, and Sam Renzel, 2 first-round picks. Yeah. It's an awesome.
Renzel's a stud. He's a stud.
It's an incredible video. Like, the 3M is awesome. But we're talking Big Ten, Penn State.
Yeah.
12-2-2 in their last 16, just shooting up the pairwise. Aiden Fink, 7th-round pick. This kid could win the Hobie Baker. I love Penn State was so good to me when I went and did the Chiclets U. They were so.
Guy Godowski's an unreal guy.
The text he sent me when I left, he was like, "You are a Penn State hockey player for life. We love you." I'm like, I take a bullet for you, coach.
Yeah, Penn State's cool.
I'm fairly confident we'll see an outdoor game at Beaver Stadium within the next 3 years. Fairly confident.
Yeah, I feel like they're like, why wouldn't you do?
It's being discussed. Yeah,
they've been working on it for a while, G. And look, not only does Penn State, if they can make some noise and get to the Frozen Four, that the eyeballs that would put on hockey because of Penn State and the brand, like I gotta say, like, if you said to me, pick a dark horse to get to the Frozen Four, like, my heart I'm like, get Penn State into the Frozen Four, because it would just be huge for the sport.
And I've said this for years, like, when the WCHA broke up and people were so fucking butthurt about it, with the Big Ten starting, I was like, this, I get it. Like, the rivalries, all this, it's fucked for a little bit, but this is so good for college hockey. And college hockey is growing right now.
Yeah,
just people, the way people are talking about it. And we can't say that has nothing to do with, like, Michigan being one of the best teams for the past few years.
For sure.
Like Michigan get, like, all the alumni,
you need
all the TV deal, like, everything Michigan and these big schools with football money bring to the table. It's invaluable. So it's like I get all those old rivalries. It sucks, we're not going to see North Dakota, Minnesota every year. But at the end of the day, like we want to grow this game, and you do that by getting the big football schools involved.
Yeah, and I will say this just to push back on you a little bit. I saw a report this week that said there are some Division I hockey programs that are looking to reclassify out of Division I because of the house settlements, because of the endowment.
But that makes sense. That makes sense. Like think about some of the schools that like have Division I hockey, and like it sucks. Like what happened with AIC?
Awful.
Sucked.
Yeah,
Eric
That's
Lang is an
awful.
awesome guy.
Yeah,
Exactly. That's awful. But
we were
there's
talking about that
schools,
before we started the show today.
but like realistically, with where college hockey is going in the next 10 to 15 years, like, do you think AIC is able to compete with these big schools with all this money where NIL is going? Like, why not go be a Division III powerhouse in like a Norwich and go win it every year, or like Oswego, like they used to be? Like, I just like, and then you see like schools like Georgia. Georgia just built their rink on like a beautiful, gorgeous rink on campus. UNC is building a rink. Hockey's coming to the South. Like whether we want to deny it or not, college hockey is coming to the South.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're right about that. I want you to be right so bad.
Like imagine UNC. Like if UNC got a team,
Dude, I was just thinking that would be the prettiest hockey uniform of all time. If
they have them, their club teams are incredible. And the way that UNC club team is ran, they play outdoor games every year. They're doing autograph sessions. They have their own locker room. Are
their uniforms Jordan branded or no?
I don't know if they are, but they're
that'd be sick.
I mean, they do custom jerseys like every 3 or 4 games. It's like some of these club, and then I don't even want to get going on club hockey because that's a whole nother story. But like UNLV taking down Denver this year, like throw them up into Division I.
Listen, I would love it. USC, UNLV, like have a
Oregon,
have a true West.
Oh my God, those are gorgeous.
I don't love those, to be honest. I think
those are gorgeous.
Have a true Western Division, but I want you to be so right here. I just think that until there's somebody that steps up and endows a program for $100 million, like, listen, Penn State has enough money to buy a country. They didn't start a Division I hockey program until Terry Pagula said, here's $88 million, right? Like, so we need to find donors from these places to basically endow these programs and get themselves back up to financially in a place, because now the school has to offer not just 25 scholarships, but 50 scholarships, because you have to have a women's program as well. Now, if your men's program is making a few $1 million a year, all these other sports are already losing money. Unfortunately, like they look at this on spreadsheets, right? Bean counters. So I want you to be right in the worst way, G. I just like, I hate that I'm a little pessimistic about it because
well, it's realistic too.
Amazing as it is, I just, until somebody steps up and just writes these big ginormous checks, what are we waiting? Like what are they waiting for? Like I just don't get it.
Well, once the Morning Cuppa hockey boys sign their new contracts, maybe that's how we get this done.
Right,
a couple more likes on the episode and we'll donate.
Yeah, every day I'm in the chat. I want to see this chat getting more likes and more subscriptions, because you see like 500 people are watching and you got 75 likes. It's like, come on, guys.
You should have 500 likes, right? You
should have 500 likes,
right? No.
D, last thing. Are you aware that you're TikTok famous?
Am I? No, I'm not.
So I'm gonna call it seeing. I've recently started seeing a girl. I told her to tune into the show today, and I sent her the thumbnail that Vic made, and she's like, "I know him." And I'm like,
from
who?
Alana, probably.
And she goes, "Mike." I was like, "No way." She's like, "Yeah, I love his fiance's TikToks. I just watched the one of her explaining all the TikTok influencer drama or whatever. Like they're hilarious." So
I think that's like been my favorite thing to like happen to me over the past year is like being like. Obviously, guys, like, I don't want to sound like a douchebag here, but like, you get noticed here and there, like Hoboken, New York, big stooly areas. Like a lot of time people won't necessarily know my name, but it's more like, oh, Barstool guy, right? But the past year, it's like I actually went in to get my haircut the other day, and it's a woman's salon. And I had to go in after all those memes of me, people calling me Grinnell scissor hands and stuff. It was bad. But I walked in and there was a girl in line and she turns around kind of like, and I'm like, that's not your typical Chiclets fan. And she was like, Mike. And I'm like, yep. And she's like, Alana. And you're like, yeah. So it's like, it's been so cool over the past year to be, I'd so much rather be more known as Alana's boyfriend than Mike from Spittin Chiclets, just because I'm just so proud of her and everything that she does. So yeah, that's been really cool. And those videos the videos of her like explaining shit to me, like in the TikTok world, they blow up. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's cool to see, and obviously send her our best too. Happy she's doing well. And honestly, I've never told this story on here too, but like the way that you and I met was pretty funny. I don't know if you even like remember, kind of, but like Jeff Marek has always told me to tell this story.
Yeah, tell the story.
I was at a Quinn 92 concert, Chelsea Cutler.
Oh yeah, this is crazy.
At Radio City in New York City. I just took a piss. I'm washing my hands. I'm the only guy in the bathroom. And out of the stall comes G. And I'm like, Grinnell? He's like, what's up, dude? I'm like, yo, I'm Jonny. Like, I played at UMass. Like, nice to meet you. And then the next day, like, I think we started following each other. Well, I was following you already, but I think I got the follow back from you the next day. But it was just crazy. It was just you and I in the bathroom in Radio City. It was wild.
Yeah, didn't you tell me about like the Jewish podcast you were doing or something?
The Locker Room.
Locker Room.
Yeah, this is back in like 2021.
Wait, Jonny, now that you're talking about bathroom stalls, like I feel like you got to tell the story now of what happened to you over the weekend with the bathroom stall.
Oh, I got to hear this.
I mean, like, this is the most Jonny story of all time. So now you got to do it because you brought up bathroom stalls. It just jogged my memory. We never talked about it on Monday.
My mom begged me not to, but
did he carve Tim Walls 2028 in the stall or something?
So I show up to the rink at UMass, like, 2.5 hours before game time when I'm on the call. So there's usually no one there. I went into the bathroom. I had to take a dump. And, there's no one in the bathroom. So I was in my suit. So I went into the handicap stall to give myself some room. I heard these voices come in the bathroom. They're talking. They're like a little bit far away and I couldn't see any feet or anything. So I thought I was like, whatever. Like, I'm just like thinking they're at the urinal. I'm like scrolling Twitter for like 3 minutes, when I'm done, just taking my time. I walk out of the stall. It's an older handicapped man.
Oh no.
With his buddy just waiting to get into the stall. I was like, dude, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Like I've never felt worse in my life. Like I'm actually shaking talking about it. It was like straight out of the Curb Your Enthusiasm like show. I was
what
like,
did he say? What
he was like, dude, don't worry about it. It's so fine. Like, don't worry. Like, but I felt so bad. Like it literally rattled my entire game. Like I couldn't stop.
Did he have someone there like helping him it
was like 2 guys. There was one guy in a wheelchair and his friend. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening.
Well, and here's the thing. Listen, obviously it's like, it's funny and it's not funny. We're not like making fun. Just to tell everyone, don't get in your feelings about this. We're not, but it's just funny that it happened to Jonny because Jonny, as much shit as we give him, is the night, he's like a puppy. We always say it. He's like a golden retriever puppy. His tail's always wagging. He's always happy.
I still feel hard. Like I'm shaking.
So for that to happen to him, it's straight out of a Larry David Curb episode.
Yeah,
that's incredible, man. I mean, it's not funny, but it absolutely.
No, I know.
Like, especially if the guy, it's like if the guy was.
No, the guy was so cool about it. He was so cool about it.
It would have been better if he like.
Sure, that happens all the time.
If he ripped him like as a joke, just like laid into him as like an absolute joke. So, all right, Jonny, tell G where you're taking your lady for dinner on Friday. So you know how serious this is getting.
Carbone, definitely a Carbone.
No, Colby's wife Alex hooked me up with a reservation at the corner store Friday night, 9:00 at the bar. So
wow.
So who's kind of like it's a make or break. It's a game 7.
How many dates have we gone on so far?
This will be 5.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Any sleepovers in there?
1, but no.
PG. It was a PG.
Oh, I'm sure she's gonna love you just airing this out on your show here.
PG sleepover, but hey,
I kind of forgot we were on a show. I thought we were just talking.
Big moves taking her to the corner store, right? I mean,
is your wife the plug here, Colby? Like, should I be hitting you up for restaurant? Like,
I mean, she knows a few people in New York. We'll say that. Because
that.
corner stores big time.
Yeah, like that's impossible to get a resi there on a Friday night. Like,
yeah, I gotta stop talking. Everyone's like, and Johnny's now single. Yeah,
9 p.m. And Bobby Bow is reminding us about the Sarah Palin Johnny, Twitter romance. Like that's real.
Can we get G off the show?
wait, I forgot about that. Can we talk
real.
about that for a sec? Does Ron Duguay want you dead?
I don't know. I have no idea.
You and Sarah Palin have a little Twitter romance for sure.
It's one way. It's one side.
He's getting defensive, Colby, where I feel like they've like met up at the Canuck a couple times or something, had some drinks. Like he Snapchats her on the side.
All right, look, I'm going to cut it off here because only I get to make fun of him like this. I get defensive when other people start jumping in and making fun of him too much. G, you're in trouble. You're a great guest as always. We'll look forward to Chiclets. You guys will be at the Frozen Four this year, right?
Yes, we will.
Okay, so lots of content surrounding all that with him and the boys.
Colby, one thing we've never talked about, and I hate to bring this up, but we did an incredible interview with you on a yacht in like 2 or 3 years ago at the Frozen Four, and our intern unfortunately lost all the footage of that, which sucked because that was such a good interview. I paid like $600 cash to this guy to like let us fucking just use his yacht for this interview. And so hopefully we can get you back on Game Notes again, because that was an incredible fucking interview, man.
Yeah, hey, listen, we'll do it. We'll do it at the Frozen Four. Hopefully, I don't think we'll have a yacht in St. Louis, but we'll pour a couple of Pink Whitneys and we'll get right to it with the boys at the Frozen Four.
Hell yeah, boys.
All right.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, you're the best. Thanks, G. Oh man,
see, I didn't let it get off the rails. I stuck up for you when I needed to.
We got off the rails.
It didn't get off the rails. I cut it off. I didn't. I cut it off at an appropriate time. Listen, you're the best sport.
You
right?
started
like,
it though.
You're the best sport. Nobody's as good a sport as you. Like nobody is as good a sport as you. I am not nearly the sport that you are. I will admit it. So I think, listen, I think there are a lot of people that are pretty invested in hearing this stuff.
Well, hopefully I didn't just blow it. This girl's actually awesome. I really like her.
There's no way you blew it. Okay. Yeah. She obviously likes you for you. So she knows that you're a golden retriever puppy.
J-Rock, Colby sells out Johnny, then saves him and acts like the hero.
Listen, that's what an older brother does to their younger brother. Like they push him down and they beat him up, and then they make sure they give him a Band-Aid and they get him a milkshake. Okay. Like, they let him get whipped cream in their milkshake. Right.
I'll take a free dessert on Friday night if you can make that happen.
Listen, nice. We started with the reservation. We'll see what else we can make happen.
You still owe me that catch dinner.
Listen, I tried to pay that to you. You didn't show up in Vegas. You didn't show up. Is that not true?
The O'Hare Airport.
You didn't show up. Whatever the circumstances are.
I was in the O'Hare Airport from midnight to 6 a.m.
You didn't show up. That's all I know. Tyler had dinner with me at Catch. You did not. That was your dinner. So, anyways, all right. You want to get to 365 here? Is there any other topics that you wanted to hit? I think there was one you wanted to get into. If you want to talk about it for a couple of minutes, that I'm game. Since it's today Thursday.
Yeah, it's Saturday at 4:30. UMass versus BU. Do you think UMass is it even an upset if UMass wins? Like, I don't think so. But that's a big game between you and I. That'll be fun to watch.
Here's I got a couple of texts from Alex about what's happening on the show right now. She said, "Why is he talking about his sleepovers?" Oh God! All right, let's reel it in. College hockey playoffs are going on right now. Yes, UMass against BU on Saturday, one gamer. Look, I said this to you before the show. Like, I think UMass 100% can win this hockey game. Yeah. I would not be surprised. I think BU has played well the last couple of games, but I think UMass, like Penn State, has been one of the best teams in the country for the last, I want to say, 6 weeks. Is that fair? Or maybe not quite, maybe 4 weeks?
Like 15 games or so. Yeah.
Like they've played really, really well against UMass. UMass has played really, really well down the stretch. They were not a tournament team a month and a half ago. So I think that'll be a great game. I think BC has an easy time getting through. Does BC play Northeastern?
I believe
Northeastern won in
so.
overtime. All the games went to overtime. The Hockey East games last night.
Not UMass.
There was a 2-1. Sorry. 2-1 in the first period and then no goals the rest of the way. So
it's UMass, BU, Lowell, Maine, and then Northeastern, BC.
that Lowell, Maine game is going to be a low scoring game. Like, take the under on that game if you're betting that game. But you've got that. You've got Penn State against Ohio State this weekend. Penn State, I think they're going to keep winning. I really do. I don't think Ohio State is taking Penn State down by any means. Let's see. I'm looking at some of the other matchups here, with some of the Providence against UConn.
Yeah, Neil's been writing about UConn all episodes.
Yeah, I mean, listen, that's going to be a dogfight, right? Those two teams have been really good. Their goaltenders have been pretty good. I don't know if there's something going on with Svedback. He didn't play against BU the last game.
I didn't watch. I don't know.
Maybe Svedback was resting that game. There's implications out west. Western Michigan just continues to roll. Pat Ferschweiler, he was sick, Neil said. Okay, so that UConn Providence game. Look, if you're on ESPN Plus, these are great games to watch all year, all weekend, right? Like one and done games in college hockey for those of you who are not like consistent college hockey viewers, consistent college hockey followers. These are great, one and done types of games. So, we will keep an eye on that. All the college stuff. We'll get into more of it next week. Selection show is next Sunday, as Butchie and I talked about. And then look, we're coming down the pike here into April. Like we're in mid-March. Playoffs are not far away from the NHL, right? So we better enjoy these Fridays off, Johnny, because we're a couple weeks away from being Monday to Friday and being with you guys for 5 days a week in the playoffs, which hopefully you guys are happy about that. One of the reasons that we felt like this was the year to do that is because you guys give a shit about not having shows on Fridays. So we're like, all right, playoffs, let's see it. If people are super dialed and they're with us, then maybe next year we're doing 5 days a week during the regular season. Like we'll figure that out. Anything can be negotiated, right, Johnny?
Yeah, and then that money will go back into the SEC for college hockey.
Yeah, right.
But let's get into our Outwest worst team of the week. We kind of put it in the chat. I see a couple different teams that everyone's throwing in. So this week, a quick word from Outwest. Guys and girls, spring is coming, and that means cool mornings and crisp evenings, the perfect time for the Sakara performance hoodie that Colby and I are both wearing from Outwest. Designed for your comfort, durability, and performance. This isn't just any hoodie. It's built to move with you, whether you're hitting the trail, setting up camp, or just kicking back in style. Lightweight yet warm, breathable yet cozy. The Sakara performance hoodie is your go-to for spring adventures. Don't get caught in the cold. Grab yours today at outwest.us and save 15% on your first order with our code Cuppa, CUPPA. That's CUPPA in all caps. Outwest, every game needs an outlaw. And honestly, this week it's going to be a little bit biased just because it was so disappointing. And I see, our listeners writing the Flyers. I see the Sabres, but with the circumstances that they were in and the meaningful games that they played, that they choked in, I have to go with the New York Rangers. They played Ottawa. They had a 3-1 lead. They blew it on Saturday. They come back home Sunday and get spanked by the Columbus Blue Jackets after tying the game with 2 shorthanded goals. And then they lose again in Winnipeg to the Jets. 3 straight losses, brutal losses at a brutal time. And this Ranger team, for what they're fighting for, I think it was just the most disappointing. Obviously, the hopes aren't as high for teams like the Flyers and the Sabres. So we're not looking at them. This is a chance for me to kind of shit on the Rangers because I don't really do it often, and I'm choosing to do it right now. So that's going to be the worst team of the week. We don't really pick them much, but I think it's warranted for this week. Colby, if you have any thoughts.
No, I'll let you wallow in your New York Rangers sadness all on your own, and I will just say to the chat, Snuggerud is still alive in his college season. I've seen a couple of that. I saw J-Rock ask him about Snuggerud, Bobby Bowe. They just have a couple of weeks off before the NCAA tournament. I certainly don't like their chances to get to the Frozen Four after sitting for 3 weeks. I did like their chances previous. I do not anymore. Here's my question for you, St. Louis fans. Is Snuggerud signing? He's waited till he's a junior. It's a new general manager now next year, not the guy who drafted him. Are you sure he's not going back to be a senior and be a free agent? Like, I don't have any insight. I think J-Rock, I see ya. I think Snuggerud's a phenomenal player. I just remember this was a guy who was going to leave after his freshman year. Now he's still there as a junior. That would make me nervous. Is he better than Leonard? No, he's not better than Leonard. I don't think you're in the same, weight class when you're talking about Ryan Leonard and Jimmy Snuggerud. The kid's a hell of a player. He can shoot. He's got ice in his veins, but it's not a comparable between him and Leonard. Zach says Monday morning, My Pillow sponsor segment with Johnny Laz. That's a good idea. Look, Zach's in the chat. He's semi-producing our show. On top of all the other shows that he produces here. So we will see what happens there with Snuggerud, because again, I don't have any insights. But I think that the kid's a hell of a player. And I think Jim Montgomery is a great coach. Like, why wouldn't you want to go play for Monty? The kid plays fast. He plays north. I think he's a guy that Monty would really like. And I do think he's got top 6 potential. No doubt about that. Like I said, when you see a guy who continues to go back to a first-round pick as a junior who's lighting it up, that would make me nervous, though, if I'm a St. Louis fan. It would. It would. So that's what I would say about that.
Let's stay on this topic, though, and get ready to change your shorts, J-Rock, because we're actually going to go with the St. Louis Blues tonight on the money line as our Bet365 bet of the night, because we do have nice things to say about the Blues. But first, where every nail-biting overtime win is a barn burner, every face-off, hat-trick, power play, shot on goal, penalty shot, and every suspenseful minute in between is amazing. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, an official partner of the NHL. So download the Bet365 app today and use the code NATION, NATION, in all caps to get in on the game. You must be 19 or older. Please play responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, visit connexontario.ca. And the St. Louis Blues, since the Four Nations tournament, have been riding the hot hand of Jordan Binnington. 5-1-0 in his last 6 starts, a .915 save percentage, a 2.12 goals against average. The Blues are tied for the most points in the NHL since the conclusion of that tournament. They're 6-1-2 in that span, scoring 3.56 goals a game, only allowing 2.44 goals against. So if Snuggerud was to join right now, he's getting in at a good time, because the Blues are just 2 points back of a playoff spot tonight, and they are in Pittsburgh taking on a very streaky Penguins team. A win tonight would do them wonders for the playoff standings. So listen, I think the St. Louis Blues, man, they're right there in it. And you got to credit Jim Montgomery in the turnaround. And Robert Thomas has been on fire too.
And you got to credit J-Rock for the information he's putting into the chat. He says Snuggerud had a meeting in January with Armstrong and Steen. His plan is to stay in St. Louis after the Frozen Four. Good information, J-Rock. The other thing I want to say, like, I see,
gotta get to the Frozen Four first.
Look, I feel like you think that I'm a St. Louis hater. Look, they've just been really average. I would love to see St. Louis get into the playoffs. The reason being, that is one of the best playoff atmospheres there is. People don't realize how good the fan base is in St. Louis. My best friend in the world played the first chunk of his career in St. Louis. I've been down there to watch a playoff game. I've seen it. I've actually even played some preseason games in that building, and it was packed and it was loud back in the day. So I would love to see the Blues sneak in. I would. I feel like, sure, I give the Blues a lot of shit because they've just been super average for a while, right? Since they won, it's just been a lot of average hockey, but I'm not a Blues hater. I don't have any beef with the Blues or St. Louis, but J-Rock, I will be counting on you to give us some good dinner as recommendations in St. Louis when we get there. We're staying like 2 blocks away from the building. But listen, Blues fans are, every guy that played in St. Louis is like, I love this place. And a lot of guys even want to live there after. So there's something to be said for that.
Yeah, I've actually never been, so I can't really speak to it. But that's all I've got for today's show, Colby. Great week. We got some good guests lined up for next week. We actually might try to have my former coach and UMass head coach, Coach Carvel. If they beat BU
this weekend, we got to get Carvey on next week. I think that would be, would be a great guest would be a great guest for that.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I've got, Colby. Now I'm going to kick it off to you to wrap up the show, and I will keep my mouth shut.
Yeah, it's good to get. It was good to get Frank on today. You know, even though he was planes, trains, and automobiles, you know, moving around, it was great to have G on. I think we found the key to getting G to come on the show. I got to be the one to ask him. That's kind of how we have
every time I text him, he's busy.
That's how we have to operate moving forward. I think it's almost become a joke. Now he just says no to you and yes to me, but we could probably make G the third member of this show, and like he would just fit in so seamless. He's one of those guests like Butchie does, like Frank does, like Jeff does when he comes on the show. Like certain people just like fit right into the show, and they can just they just roll with everything. So good week this week. It was good to be back together for a full week. I like when we can do a longer show on Thursday. Normally I'm running off to practice, but not today. The team is off to Rochester today. So it's good to get through this one. Good job all week with guests. We had a packed week. Our numbers have been unbelievable the last couple of weeks from you guys. Like the growth that we're seeing in this show, in the downloads, in the YouTubes, in the social media clips, in the comments, in the likes. It's been like a steady climb. I think our network is really, really happy. You know, this show's a little more than a year old at this point. We're what, a year and a couple of months old. And the growth from all of you guys has just been, you know, it's what keeps the network wanting to keep us doing this show. And it keeps the advertisers wanting to continue to advertise on this show. So, you know, we can do what we got to do. So again, you know, none of this is possible without you guys. And again, the good, the bad, the worst, we want to hear it all. You know, I love when we all go at each other. That's like one of my favorite parts of this show. When some of our regulars come at us, we come right back at you.
Really just you.
Yeah, pretty much just me. And then Johnny texts me after, like, I hope they're not mad at me or whatever. But no, we appreciate it all. We really do. There's really no show without you guys. And Johnny told me about this whole chat function and wanting to incorporate the audience. And when he first told me about it, I kind of just rolled my eyes at him and said, yeah, sure, whatever you want. I had no idea this is where we would be in a year and change. I had no idea. I think Johnny actually had this idea, so I'll credit him.
No. I was always in the game notes chat, and I loved how interactive it was. So credit to G actually and Colby and Merles. Like they were the first ones that I was familiar with doing it. That's
my point. You had this vision that I didn't see, and this community that I knew nothing about because I've never used YouTube before, right? That was never, I still only use it for this, for DFO Live and for the sheet is really what I use YouTube for. Even Chiclets I don't see on YouTube. I watch that on Twitter more, and other places. So wanted to take a few extra seconds today to just tell you guys that you know, and gals that we're grateful and we're appreciative of it. And again, even if you come here to hate us, really me probably, that's okay. You're still here and we still appreciate you. And so that's all we got for this week. We'll be off tomorrow. We'll be back Monday at 9 a.m. We'll continue to incorporate obviously lots of NHL, and we'll drip some college stuff into it. And we will push closer to the playoffs, push closer to the Frozen Four. And we'll just keep you up on all of the things happening around this beautiful game that we all love. So Johnny, the last thing I will say to you is good luck tomorrow night.
Thanks, guys.
Hope everything goes very well. I appreciate how candid you were today. I think it made the show better, although we did see a big drop off on YouTube when we started talking about that stuff. So, you know, maybe some of our audience is not as into it. I'm kidding. But
my mom's going to kill me.
we'll all be waiting for updates come Monday from you off the top of the show. So we hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday. We hope you have a great Friday and a great weekend. DFO Live today at noon. As always, the sheet will be their regular time at 3 p.m. Brian Burke is Fridays on the sheet, right?
Yeah. They don't have a guest slot in yet.
Yeah, he's Fridays on the sheet. I'm sure Zach and team will update you guys on who will be coming on today for the sheet. So you'll want to catch that as well. So have a great weekend, everybody. A long weekend, hopefully. It will be for us, and we will see everybody as we always do, 9 a.m. Monday morning, right back here. See you then.
What's up, hockey fans? If you enjoyed that video, then you need to be hitting the subscribe button right here at Daily Faceoff. Exclusive interviews and analysis from our hockey insider Frank Seravalli, fantasy updates from Brock Sagan, and a daily live show at noon Eastern, Monday through Friday. You don't want to miss any of the fantastic content, so hit that subscribe.